Okay, hi, trig and function analysis. This is part of your homework for tonight, Wednesday, September 13th. So you've just taken a test. Tonight's homework is to watch this screencast, and then there's a problem set that is assigned with it, okay? When you watch a screencast, I know for this class, this is your first screencast. When you watch a screencast, boys and girls, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you take these notes as you would in class, as if these were actual notes, okay? And I also want you to think about this. When you're taking notes on a screencast, you don't want to just be copying things down blindly, okay? You do want to be listening actively and making sure that as you proceed through the screencast and take the notes with me, that you understand what it is that I'm saying. The beauty of screencasts is that you can pause them, you can rewind them, make notes, along the way where things are unclear. The first thing I'll ask you tomorrow when I see you is, were there any things unclear in the screencast? Okay, and that's where you will say, yeah, did you mean this when you wrote this? Okay, that kind of thing, all right? But generally speaking, these screencasts, I've had really positive experiences with them from students. It's a nice kind of change of gear for you. And it also, frankly, just lets you kind of have control over the quote unquote speed of delivery. Okay. All right. So on that handout I gave you probably last week, it was methods for solving quadratic equations. And I think I had 4 blanks, right? And I don't really consider the F2 solve method a valid way to solve it. And I will talk much more about the graphing calculator and what it is I'd like you to be able to do when you solve an equation using a graphing calculator beyond just the F2 solve. But you just had a test on solving quadratic equations by factoring, by using the quadratic formula. And then the final method that we're going to review, because I know you've seen this before, is called the method of completing the square. Okay. And so that's going to be the topic of this screencast. First of all, to understand the method of completing the square, we have to know what the phrase actually means. To complete the square means to create a perfect square trinomial. Okay, and I bet that as you write these words, you're probably wondering, well, what's a perfect square trinomial? A perfect square trinomial is a trinomial that factors in this fashion. So i.e., okay, x squared plus 6x plus 9 and 4x squared, let's see, minus 20x plus 25, okay? These are both perfect square trinomials. Let's see why they're called that way. Okay, they are both perfect square trinomial expressions. Let's underscore that too. 2 words that people mess up and confuse. One of them is sequences versus series. The other one's expressions versus equations. Okay, let's just make sure we cover that. An expression has no equal sign. You can't solve an expression, okay? You can simplify an expression, you can factor an expression, but you can't solve an expression. Equations have equal signs that you can solve. Equations can be solved. All right. So what makes them perfect square trinomials? Well, go ahead and pause me, and to the right, please factor both of these expressions and then replay me. Okay, you will see that when you factor both of these expressions, something happens. Okay, a perfect square trinomial is a trinomial, 1, 2, 3 terms. Okay, quadratic trinomial, degree 2 trinomial, 3 terms, degree 2. That's the trinomial part. What makes these trinomials perfect squares is that when we factor them, it's the same factor times the same factor. And when something factors in this fashion, I can certainly write x plus 3 times x plus 3, or I can write x plus 3, the quantity squared. Okay, 2x minus 5, the quantity squared. All right, so this is what makes a perfect square trinomial a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial is factorable in a fashion that allows for the two factors to be identical. And when the two factors are identical, you can write that factorization as that factor to the power of 2. I will say one of the most common mistakes that I see people make on the SAT or ACT is one of the questions will be like, what does this equal over here? And people will do this all the time. They'll say, oh, I know what this equals. This equals just x squared plus 9. And as you know, of course, you do not just square each term. When you have a binomial, two terms, squared, you write it out this way, x plus 3 times x plus 3, and then you quote unquote FOIL and you get this, okay? So one of the most common mistakes. Let's make sure it's no. Okay. So that is a perfect square trinomial. These are perfect square trinomial expressions. So let's now review how to solve an equation now, okay, by the method of completing the square. Okay. And this is a review, but it's probably a distant review, so I'll walk through this fairly thoroughly and at a comfortable pace, okay? Solve by completing the square. Let's say the equation looks like this, okay? Oh gosh, okay, x squared minus 16x equals, well, whoops, sorry. Plus 2 equals 0. All right. Now, right away, and again, in your notes, I think it's really helpful to be really clear that this was the equation given. Here's how we're going to do it. So, yes, I see that you're told here to solve by completing the square. Maybe you'll take a couple mental notes and say, okay, this is not factorable. It's set equal to 0 is not factorable. And also the quadratic formula. I can always use the quadratic formula, but ew, huge numbers. Okay, what does it mean to solve by completing the square? All right, here's step 1. Ready? We're going to take this equation and we are going to subtract or move the constant over, which in this case is subtracting. Notice I left a space here, okay? Now I'm going to rewrite it because these are our notes after all. I want you to look at the left-hand side of this expression, of this equation. My goodness. Look at the left-hand side. My question to you is, what constant do you wish was here? That would then make x squared minus 16x plus this number a perfect square trinomial. In other words, what number do you wish was here that would allow this expression to be factored as some factor times some factor? Okay? And I'll help you. We're just dealing with the left side of the equation here. I know I'm going to have x and x, okay? And I know that I want to obtain the exact same factor here and here. So what numbers here will allow me to, okay, let me do this, will allow me to, if I were to check that I factored correctly, would I check this times this plus this times this added together should equal negative 16x. And you can pause me and think about it and then replay me for the answer. I think that's always a good thing to try. I actually like that idea a lot. Most people do that because that way you're actually like, am I following her? Am I really getting it? Okay. Well, here's the answer. The answer is minus 8 and minus 8 would go here. So what you wish was here was a, very good, plus 64. Because if you had a plus 64 there, then this left-hand side would be a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so now we dealt with the left-hand side of the expression. Now here's the thing. This is an equation after all. And what you add to one side of the equation, you must add to the other. This is the step people forget all the time. It's like they forget to have to deal with an equation. You have to take care of that. Don't forget. Okay, and you'll notice here that, as far as equations go, what's great about equations is that you can do whatever you want to an equation as long as you do it to both sides, and it's called maintaining the integrity of the equation. All right, let's proceed. So now what I've done is I've done this: x squared minus 16x plus 64 equals negative 2 plus 64 is 62. Okay, and now I'm going to factor. this left-hand side. And I already know this equals this. I get x minus 8 times x minus 8 equals 62, which means I could write this as x minus 8, the quantity squared, equals 62. All right. In case you're curious, another really common mistake is at this point, well, actually, I won't even tell you because I don't want to continue. Let's just finish. All right. Now look what I've done here. When I have x minus 8 squared equals 62, look what I can do. I can take the square root of both sides. And I get now x minus 8 equals, oh, be careful, plus or minus root 62. Okay. And x equals 8 plus or minus the square root of 62. Without a calculator, I would stop. You would stop right there. Okay, so if you want to, here's where boys and girls, you know, one thing I'll be emphasizing over and over and over to you is the skill of taking math notes in a way that's going to be useful to you. Maybe you'll go over here and put some words to the left. You know, you need to know what you need. You have to figure out what you need for your notes. So maybe here, step 1, it's like, maybe step 0 is, you know, if this was solve using any method, maybe you'd say like, check if it's factorable and set equal to 0. Oh, not factorable. Okay. I could also use the quadratic formula, but I don't feel like it. You know, I'm not in the mood. So I'm going to complete the square. So what does completing the square mean? Okay, right here, you move the constant over. Here, you create the perfect square trinomial on the left-hand side. Then what's the next step, boys and girls? Yes, then you factor. Then, okay, right here, you write as something being squared. And then maybe you'd write down here, then take square root. And if you're someone who forgets the plus or minus, you'd make a little big green or purple or neon, whatever, okay, and say, don't forget plus or minus, okay? Your notes need to speak to what you need, right? Okay, let's give you one to try on your own, and then you come back and let's compare, all right? Go ahead, solve this equation by completing the square. Well, let's see. Okay, let's solve this one. X squared plus 6x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, go ahead and solve by completing the square and then replay me for the answer. Okay, all right, here we go. So I'm going to complete the square. I've been told to complete the square. I'm moving the constant over. And I'm just in the habit of leaving a space here. It's just a habit of mine. If you don't like to, you don't need to. It's just a habit of mine. Then I'm going to complete the square. What do I wish was here? Yes, I wish it was a plus 9, and I have to add to both sides. That means I can then factor. I get x plus 3 times x plus 3 equals 5. This is the same thing as x plus 3, quantity squared, equals 5. Take the square root of both sides. Okay, x plus 3 equals plus or minus square root of 5. This number is between 2 and 3, right? X equals negative 3 plus or minus square root of 5. Ding, ding, ding. Okay. All right, so that's a screencast. Your homework that accompanies this screencast is the following. Page 95, numbers 25, 27, 55, and 53. Okay, we'll keep it light tonight. All right, great job today on the test. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.